right, so it is 6:09 p.m. I will call this meeting of the North Lakes Academy School Board to order. And the first item on the agenda is to approve the agenda. I am going to ask to amend the agenda to include a new first read of policy 317. We looked at this one last time, but the policy committee found a policy that we feel just is worded better. So I'd like to bring this one for a first read tonight, and then you'll have the month to look it over and such. So if that's acceptable, if I could get a motion to amend the agenda to include 317.
So moved.
All right, thank you, Mr. Lutz. Do I have a second?
Second.
Hang on. All right. Hi, Jeff. We're just amending the agenda like I said before. All right, so let's see. Roll call. Ogard.
Here.
Well, I guess we're voting on amending the agenda. Sorry.
Aye.
Thank you. This also okay. I suppose unless this is not the way I wanted it to go. Hannah.
Aye.
Jeff.
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
Anne.
Aye.
Tom.
Aye.
All right, that's well, unanimous for those who are here. So, all right, so we will add.
Sorry, can I get caught up, please? Who made the motion to amend the agenda?
Oh, yep, Tom made the motion. And who seconded? Was that Josh? Yep. All right.
Okay.
So that will go, 317 will go under operational business.
Yep.
All right.
And then I need to know who is present.
Oh, well, let's do the roll then. Ogard.
Here.
Borgwart.
Here.
Lutz.
Here.
Hanson.
Here.
Lesser.
Here.
Rapp.
Here.
I am here. Where are we going?
Ms. Double R?
Oh, yeah. Laura is not yet here.
Okay.
And Jessica Anderson.
Jessica is not yet here. Let me see if I have emails from them.
And Jamie should be popping on any moment here.
Laura and I are at school for a training until just after 5, so.
Sure.
They should be on the line.
Good. 6, 7.
We'll just give them a second here to see if they.
Chelsea, just to help me get caught up with the minutes, you did call the meeting to order.
I did 6:09.
Okay.
Here's Jamie. All right.
Then Mike Pokernich will also be joining as soon as he finishes his other meeting. It should be relatively quick.
Okay. Yeah, Jeff, I'll let you know when I see him, so you can add him to community.
Okay.
All right, well. All right, well, should we proceed? And then if I don't want to make you guys sit here indefinitely. So the next item on the agenda is the approval of our May minutes. We get the motion to approve the May minutes.
Make a motion to approve the May minutes.
Thank you, Scott.
Second.
Thank you, Hannah.
They
And
were expertly typed out, Jeff.
Thank you. I did find one error that I corrected. Since I presented them to you, I did have one wrong date in there. I found that later and fixed that one wrong date. But thank you.
No problem.
all right, so roll call vote. Hanson,
Aye.
Rapp,
Aye.
Lesser,
I
Bogard,
Aye.
Borgwart,
Aye.
Lutz.
Aye.
I believe, is that all of you? They keep moving around when people talk. I can't keep track of it. All right, so that passes. Next item would be community comments. We don't have anybody from the community here, so I'm gonna skip that one. Unless any of you want to pontificate for 2 minutes. The next one would be financial business. And let's see, Cam, do we need to wait on the mic? Or
Yeah, I mean, we could probably talk about how this year ended up since Jan has that put together.
Okay.
But would maybe want to wait on the new budget.
okay. All right, so I will pull up the All right, so I guess we can start then with the finance committee meeting and then go to the last year's budget. So, all right, Josh, you're on.
Yeah, we met earlier today. The main thing we talked about was with lunch and the community fund being in negative balance. We are going to eventually need to move funds over because we can't end with a negative balance. So next month's meeting in July, we may need to file a motion to move those funds over. And we'll have to talk with TAG about that. Big reason for the lunch being negative balance this year is we had more lunch workers than were expected, so our expenditure was higher. And then just a few things in the check register, as you can see there. And then in the financial report, we only have 39% of our lease aid in revenue, even though we're 92% of the way all the way through the year. And Jan said that the reason for that is because the government chooses when we get what funds, and they take it out of different buckets at different times. So we will get the money eventually. It's just when. And if we don't get it this year, we will get catch-up money next year to balance it out. The ESSER 2 money has come in, so the budget, I don't believe that was in the current budget, so that means the budget will change, hopefully for the better, even more so. And then since we did refinance the bonds, it did show in the budget that we had June lease payments. But since we closed in June, would we have a layover month and our next payment wouldn't actually be till July? And I wasn't sure on that one. So Cam, if you can speak to that.
Yeah, I'm don't hold me to this, but that is my belief that much like a mortgage, you kind of get a month reprieve as things get set up. I think that's the case, but frankly, I haven't confirmed that.
Right. So then if that's the case, then those payments should be taken out of the June portion of the budget, which actually would make the numbers look better, even more so.
Would that hold true for Judy's money as well, for Brood?
That's a good question. I got a voicemail from her. I'll talk about that with
Okay.
you.
Okay. I would add that the ESSER two money is in 2021's budget. So that will not go up, that the whole amount was in the budget for this last year.
All right. Any further questions on the Finance Committee report? All right, so I would entertain a motion to approve the Finance Committee report.
I would like to make a motion to approve the Finance Committee report along with its accompanying registers and reports for the month of May 2021.
Rep, do I have a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
All right, thank you, Mr. Schlesser. All right, let's vote. Ogard,
Aye.
Borgort,
Aye.
Lutz,
Aye.
Schlesser,
Aye.
Hanson,
Aye.
Rapp,
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
All right, very good. Moving on. We have the, let's see, 2021 budget summary. Is that the one you want me to project, Cam?
Sure.
All right. All right. Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is how we finished up this year. And actually, I'll for this, because Jan put it together, I'll kind of defer to Jan to walk us through it a little bit, if that's all right, Jan.
Sure. First of all, you'll notice that we brought the student count down to 550, which then made some difference in our, I guess it won't let me move my budget for some reason or other. Why? The general ed budget. It's not letting me move my stuff. So
Do you want me to stop sharing the?
well, I've got my own one here. Let's see. That's the budget that, oh, okay, that's why I can't see mine, I guess. So then I'm kind of blind.
Jan, if you hit escape, you can get out of your Zoom and then you can open up your document to the
There
front.
we go. That's a good, thank you very much. That make me, otherwise I don't have that great a memory. So our state revenue was a little bit less. But as you can see, our federal revenues changed, went up quite a bit. We got the ESSER two money, which was a big help. That's 146,859, which was quite easy to spend. They let us have a lot of leniency. Everything else pretty much stayed the same. There wasn't a lot of huge differences. If anyone has questions on why different things changed, I can certainly answer those. but there weren't a lot of huge changes that we didn't expect. The title programs down on line, like Title V program for the CSP grant, that is what we've currently spent, and that's what I'm budgeting to receive, and I think there's some more coming in, but we aren't sure which year it's going to be spent in, so that's in and out. I think our sites and buildings, we were able to use some money from the ESSER to help with that as well. So the bottom line, aside from the fact that the federal food program is 40,000 in the red, which is not unusual for a charter school. Most charter schools run their lunch program are almost always in the negative. One of the main reasons I think ours was in the positive before is the person who was dealing with was the head of the lunch program at that time. Her funding was from a general ed perspective, so it didn't hit the federal food program like it is now when we have our federal food workers that actually go towards a federal food program. So I think I was real happy with the bottom line that we're actually we're better than we projected to be by at least $125,000, and I will put more into our fund balance, which is always a good thing. Anybody have specific questions as you go through this as to why this happened or that happened? Or and the only caveat to this would be is if we don't need to make those 2 lease payments for the upper and middle school, that'll help the bottom line even more. But everything else should be pretty close to what is in this budget.
All right. Any questions on the 2021 budget summary? All right, then I would entertain a motion to approve the 2021 budget summary.
I'll make a motion to move to approve the 2021 budget summary.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Member Hanson. And let's vote. Ogard,
Aye.
Borgort,
Aye.
Lute,
Aye.
Schlosser,
Aye.
Hanson,
Aye.
Rapp. You're muted there, Jeff.
Sorry, working on another screen. Aye.
Anderson
Aye.
and Delvelar.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Very good. All right, so did we go to the 21-22 budget then, Cam?
I go to the budget memo.
Budget memo. All
Yeah,
right.
leave that first.
All right.
All right, so the budget memo is kind of a bullet point overview of some of the larger aspects of the budget that was prepared by Tay for the following school year. Before I jump into that, I just want to kind of once again thank Jan for everything she's done and how she has officially not had to, I don't think you've really had to touch this budget for the coming year. And so we're starting to make that separation happen, but just thank you for everything you've done up until this point. It's obviously going to look a little bit different for those of us who have been around for a little bit, but our goal is to get questions answered and get clarity on kind of the bigger pieces without having to dive into every single line item piece that's there. So with that said, if you want to scroll a little bit here, Chelsea.
All right. No, that's not, there we go.
So just some notes on the larger funding shifts, some staffing where some of these big pieces are coming from. Usually salary and benefits take up the largest part of the budget. Some considerations, and then whatever questions you may have. So this next slide you'll see is a little bit redundant. You'll see this in the next kind of presentation that TAG has put together as well. But this budget was set at 625 students. Initially, we ran it at 650, but then after some board info and just looking at, for lack of a better term, what can we get away with? So what can we set the number at as conservative as possible while still meeting as many of our goals as possible? We shifted it down to 625 students. So this includes a 1.5% increase to the Gen Ed funding formula from the legislator. I should point out, and I got an email actually in the last probably hour from the MDE commissioner that since the Minnesota legislator has not yet set a budget, and they are right up against the clock right now, we got a letter notifying us that it is possible that the state may shut down. And if that does happen, that will have an impact on schools and school funding. Right now, the word that we're receiving is essentially that we believe that a package will be put in place and that funding will be made available, but just in case, you should be aware that it's possible that it won't be. But that 1.5 increase is a kind of a norm. Actually, usually it's 2% what the state actually finally decides on. But so right now that's an estimate, but it's somewhat of a safe estimate considering what has happened in the past. And then you'll see that again in the next presentation, so I won't go over all of that. As most of you know or should know at this point, we did get 3.82% yield for our bonding project, and that certainly had a shift in our projected budget, a positive shift for us. CSP grant money, it's in its second year of expenditures. It's about half and half on how that was spent. It was a $200,000 grant. And then we did put in a 2% increase for all staff salary for all NLA employees. And I think we're able to do that and still maintain the kind of numbers we need in order to meet the covenants for our bonding deal. SPED funding at NLA has increased for the 5th year in a row. 90% of special ed funding is reimbursed, but it's still an increase. And then we did receive ADSYS approval in a much larger amount. We've done ADSYS the last 2 years. Mr. Brandt had submitted an application for that and has overseen the ADSYS, I don't know what to call it, the ADSYS project at North Lakes. We submitted a much more robust budget for the next 2 years. And again, 80% of that will be reimbursed as well. So we got approval for that, and that will allow us to actually bring in some more math and reading help at the K-8 level. So there's some of the larger shifts in funding from last year's budget to this year's budget. Staffing, always a consideration. At the administrative level, obviously Jan is retiring, and so we brought on TAG to do the oversight and compliance measures for the school. We created an operations director role that Mike Higgins will be starting on July 1st. He's already sort of started this role and has been present, but officially begin July 1st. And part of Mike's role coming in is that we did cut the technology and Mars coordinator roles and kind of envelope them under Mike's role as a whole. So the operations director is a kind of an umbrella role at the district level. So all of those pieces combined came very close to evening out what we had last year in the budget and what we would have this year. So kind of a net break even for administration. Outside of the 2% increase in salaries. Staffing for teachers. The upper school has a number of new teachers coming in. You can see we have a new teacher in Spanish, music, fine arts, math, and special education at this point. Three, I want to say at least three of the new hires are new teachers to the profession. So we have a chance to bring them in and mold them in the NLA way and see what they can do for us, though we feel pretty confident about their abilities. And then at the K-8 level, we have hired a 1st grade teacher and 5th grade teacher because those grade levels have been growing to 3 sections. We are in the process. We've done interviews for math and language arts, but we have not yet made offers on those positions. We anticipate that happening in the next day or two, actually. And then I can't quite see what the bottom one is, and I'm forgetting it off the top of my head. I don't know if it's a paraprofessional or a sped teacher. I think we have one more position we're looking to hire as well. Chelsea, can you scroll up just a little bit, please?
5th grade.
5th grade. Oh yeah, sorry, yeah. So one of the 5th grade hires was to replace Tim, who had retired. Yep, and then another vacant 5th grade. And then Jenny Dale is moving from upper school music to the K-8 music program, which is why that position was vacant at the upper school. And then Robin Vander Zanden, who came here as a kindergarten teacher. She was a kindergarten teacher last year. And then this last year served as our distance learner for grades K through 3. She'll be coming back into the building and will serve in 2nd grade this coming year. So those are the shifts in staffing. And then some variables at play when looking at next year's budget. COVID still is going to have an effect on student enrollment. I think right now, the last few weeks, enrollment has been somewhat slow. And I think a lot of that I would attribute to parents and teachers kind of just wanting the school year to be done with and get over with and keeping the focus on that. I would anticipate some more movement in the summer than what we've traditionally seen once they're able to kind of take a breath and then look at what they want to do. I anticipate a number of one-off purchases after construction happens, you know, just things that either you can't really anticipate until you see and feel the new space that may need to happen, whether it's furniture, supplies, and materials. That may have to happen once the upper school is fully constructed and the K-8 is also finished off. The shift from finance director from Jan's position to TAG and operations, just what need there might be for support in that role. For example, I know Jan is willing to help out with the audit that will happen in the fall. So just see what that kind of takes and what that ends up being so we can have a smooth transition. And then the federal and state funding mechanisms that have played a role in the last 12 months, whether it's federal dollars coming in terms of aid, or what the legislator does with the legislators do with the state budget. We just don't know that yet. So we're taking the best guesses we can with what we've seen in the past, but those aren't locked down yet. So there may be some changes there. With that, maybe I'll take a breath and see if there's any large scale questions that come to mind.
Cam, are you seeing I notice we still have vacancies here.
Yeah.
Are we seeing interest? Do we have applicants and just not interviews yet, or is there evidence?
So we interviewed last week for both math and language arts. So we do have candidates. We actually have another interview lined up tomorrow, which is why we haven't yet to make an offer. So I do anticipate the math and language arts being filled. The 5th grade, we haven't. How do I say it? That will be an easier one to fill. We tend to have a number of applicants for elementary positions.
Okay.
So these will be filled. It's just a matter of timing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cam, is it true that we're leaving ADP for our payroll and moving to another provider?
Yeah, we are moving to Skyward.
Essentially the same cost for those, or we experiencing an extra cost or an extra gain in that?
So it's a little bit of a give and take in that I think the upfront cost is a little more. ADP we ran the payroll pretty cheap on ADP, but the labor that Jan had to do to take the numbers from Skyward and put them into ADP and then run the payroll, you know, there's a trade-off there. And when we made this shift to TAG, because we're using Skyward as our main accounting system, we felt it was worth it to make the shift to Skyward payroll as well.
All right.
Yeah, Chelsea, you want to bring up the budget report? That'll be the next. So TAG put this together. It looks like I haven't seen Mike join the meeting. But,
Yeah, Mike joined.
Oh,
Wait,
here.
Oh, great.
I'm sneaky.
Well, look at that. You jumped in right at the right time then.
Oh no, I got to hear your presentation. Perfect. So my name is Mike Bockenich. I'm the managing director of the Anton Group. We only provide services to traditional schools and public schools and charter schools. So this is what we do. And Don't see that changing anytime soon. So if you want to scroll down to, I believe page 2 should have the start of the highlights. Okay. So this is what we typically put together for our schools. Just kind of gives you the parameters of what we use really for the upcoming fiscal year, right? We run a 5 to 6 year long range budget forecast. But as you know, the further you go out, the bigger the guess is, so really, and plus we're approving next year's budget. We're not approving a long range forecast, so we'll hit the highlights. As Cam mentioned, 625 ADM. So probably the biggest win for the school in the past couple of months has been where the pricing came in with the bond. So I did work with the team on the bond project running the budget projection. But essentially that allows us to have a heck of a lot more flexibility with our enrollment, considering where the yield was at 7+% to where it settled at, which is below 4%. I want to say to a tune of $120,000 to $150,000 a year of decreased lease expense. So as Cam mentioned, initially we ran a budget on 650. Everything looked kosher, everything looked fine. But of course, every school has question marks with where enrollment's going to land this upcoming fall. So we ran a 625, but also at the same time too updated the expense section related to the lease payments. And we're still in a really good position. So to spare you the boring stuff, we're still able to meet our debt service coverage ratio. There you go. Which has to be 1.1 or above, and we're currently calculating at 1.16. So with that, we do have a surplus of, let me see here. I do have file. I can just blurt it out to you guys. You don't need to scroll around. We do have a surplus forecasted of $180,000. So that does include some federal money, ESSER money that is to be spent this year. We also have federal money that the state is allocating that we haven't budgeted yet, that's for basically summer school and learning loss, right? So this is something that has come out, I want to say, even right around the same time we were finalizing the budget. So we, just with last year, we had all these different revenue streams that popped up and we adjusted the budget to accommodate. It's going to be to a much lesser extent, but a similar context for this upcoming year, which obviously you start with enrollment and having to look at growth, and that's the first thing we're going to be monitoring. But as we kind of continue, that's going to be the game is what funding sources do we have? Are there new funding sources? I pray to God we don't have new funding sources thrown at us next year, but I'll take what I can get, I guess, for our schools. But it's been pretty hectic with where the numbers have been. So with that, that's kind of it for the kind of high level for the budget forecast. I add in some graphs here. You can see how the revenues and expenses are allocated. And then I throw in a little bit of the historical fund balance and enrollment on the next slide down, just to give you a sense of where the school's been and kind of what's happened when things, enrollment increases. I think the one thing I will note on the top graph, when you see the fiscal 20 fund balance shooting up to just over $1 million, that's the recognition of the PPP loan that we did secure during that fiscal year. So we did have a pretty good pop, not only with enrollment, but also too with the funding related to the PPP loan this year. Obviously, we took a little bit of a hit with enrollment, so that's going to, kind of, I guess, normalize the fund balance to a forecast at $700,000 right now for fiscal 21. But as Jan mentioned, sounds like we're going to be able to improve that by, 100K give or take. So hopefully we'll settle around $800,000 for the fund balance for this year. But yeah, those are your kind of fancy graphs and metrics that you can take a look at. And if you scroll further down, we get into the long range forecast. So there you can see not only fiscal 22, which what we're approving, but also to the forward-looking forecast through fiscal 26. The last item I'll note is as Cam and I have adjusted enrollment for this upcoming fiscal year, is also adjusting for the future fiscal years as well, right? So I haven't seen a case where The original plan was to grow 50 students each year. Well, we're going to be more conservative this year, but we're still going to, go from 500 to 600 next year and still be on track. That's never happened. So I think if we're going to settle with 625, we have to adjust kind of our forward-looking expectations. But the key items to look at on this summary page here is going to be towards the bottom. It's going to be your change in fund balance. So that line item exactly right there. So ensuring that you have a surplus each year, because the bottom line, the debt service coverage ratio, is going to be the test that the investors really watch and focus on, because that has a direct connection to how well you're able to cover your debt service or debt requirements. So we want to keep that at 1.1 because that indicates a debt service coverage ratio of 1.1 indicates that we have free cash flow plus 10% of what our debt requirements are. So the higher that number is, the better off we look. So you can see it ranges from 1.16 all the way up to 1.14 in fiscal, I believe that is 25. So with the surplus also comes our coverage ratio. If we run a deficit, that you're going to see that number shrink and tighten up. But you can see that it's pretty well relative with the size of our surplus compared to where we land with our debt service coverage ratio. All right. Anything else you guys want me to speak on? Because I can keep on going. It's a nice, cool June evening. So if you want to hear finance, you can hear it. If not, cut me off.
Does anyone have any questions?
I just have one question. I thought that I had heard that we're running 2 sections of 5th grade. So is the budget showing, is that like staff salaries budgeted for 3 sections of 5th grade or for 2?
Let me take a look here. So we have, looks like 60 kids running in, did you say 5th grade?
Correct.
Yeah, so we have 55 for this upcoming year. If you scroll to that page right there with the enrollment.
Mm-hmm.
Right there.
All right, so 5th grade is in question. 55 this year, and then it bumps to 60 in fiscal 23, 24, 25, and 26. That bumps up to 66. So I'd assume that would be
3
sections, right? If you're running 20 to 22 students per section.
Yep. So, and as of today, we're at 52 enrolled in 5th grade. So it is likely that we will bring in a 3rd staff member. That is in the budget. That is forecasted.
Other questions?
Mr. Lutz is raised.
You cut out there, Jeff.
I believe that Mr. Lutz has his hand raised.
Oh. All right, Tom, go for it.
Just looking for clarification. Does the fiscal year start in July?
Yeah, July 1 through June 30.
Okay, so this July starts fiscal year 21?
22. Yeah.
22.
All right. Jeff, you had a question?
Mike, I noticed on the second page of the long range forecast, you show ESSER 2 money of $46,860. In our finance meeting today, I believe that money is not going to be available in 22, that we're using it now in 21. Is that accurate?
Yes, correct. And so we also have state revenue that we haven't budgeted that's basically a direct offset. Even though the uses are going to be slightly different, as the state funding that I mentioned earlier, that's going to be to cover learning loss as well as summer school, so still learning loss. So I'm not too concerned about having some revenue budget that was already soaked up this year, because we have revenue that we haven't allocated yet that will basically be a offset.
Thank you. And my second question then was regarding the ADSYS that we heard of. Is that included in this, or is that newer information to you?
So that's newer information, but Cam, are the ads, do you feel like the access staffing is reflected in the budget?
Ooh, it's pretty close.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that would be, so I haven't calculated any revenue for that quite yet. So that would be another adjustment as we get into it. So I think as we add on or hire on our final staffing, that'll be a key piece that we take a look at and say, do we have to add on staffing to fill out the roles? And if so, then we'll have to add some cost to it. But I think at this point, if we're looking at a $300,000 or a $300,000 add to our ADSIS program, we should see the bottom line, benefit accordingly.
Great.
So just a minor piece here with that ADSIS program. Essentially, it just goes through the special ed formula, like any other special ed expenditure. And it's actually about 80,000 north of what we actually meant to submit. The social worker, that's just 0.1 went in there as 1.0. So instead of 90, it's actually 9. But either way, it comes back as almost a 90% reimbursement. So it's still a significant, salary, if you will. But
absolutely. And Andrew, do you feel like the access team as it's presented, maybe there's placeholders, but is there anybody else that we need to add into the mix?
Who's not accounted for?
Yeah, well, that's not currently hired is really what I'm getting at.
Still looking for part-time middle school reading support. Yes.
Got it. All right, so that's really that's not a major concern, right? So we'll get the access reflected in there. Good, yeah. So that'll bolster the bottom line, and we'll be reforecasting the budget in a couple months. Anyways, as we look at the start of the school year.
All right. Other questions? I'm a teacher. My wait time is fantastic. All right, I'll trust you. All right, so if that is what we need to do here for the 21-22 budget, I would entertain a motion to approve the initial 21-22 budget.
So moved.
That was Mr. Lutz.
Sure.
And can I get a second?
I'll second.
That was Ms. Delvar. All right, so roll call votes. Mr. Rapp,
Aye.
Ms. Delvar,
Aye.
Ms. Hanson,
Aye.
Ms. Borgwart,
Aye.
Ms. Anderson.
Aye.
Sorry. Let's see. Mr. Lutz.
Aye.
Mr. Ogard.
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
And is that everybody? Good for me. All right, that passes. Thank you very much. Moving on. We have the so moving on to academic business, then we have the K-8 and upper school building reports.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah,
point of order here. I believe we need to authorize the issuance of wage agreements yet.
thank you. Yes, I didn't see, sorry, at the agenda, not at the folder. I didn't see anything in the folder for wage agreements, so that Cam, that's just something that we vote on.
Yeah, so it's now that we've approved the budget, we have this salary set for staff.
Right.
So now you're giving me authorization to actually issue the wage agreements that based off the budget you just passed.
Okay, so I would entertain a motion to authorize the wage agreements for the 21-22 school year based on the budget that was passed.
I will make a motion to authorize issuance of wage agreements for this upcoming school year.
Thank you, Josh. Do I have a second?
Aye.
I saw Hannah.
Yep, Hannah, totally.
Okay. Hannah's the second on that one. And roll call vote. Ogard,
Aye.
Borgwart, sorry. Lutz,
Okay.
Aye.
Lesser,
Aye.
Hanson,
Aye.
Rapp,
Aye.
Delvelar,
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
All right, motion passes unanimously. All right, so now we will move on to academic business. First item up is the K-8 building report. Andrew,
Good evening.
yours.
Ended enrollment at 390 for the K-8. Not much movement in the last month. Current projections in the K-8 building alone look at 413. That's not accounting for anticipated departures, however. I meant to sneak that in there. So we're somewhere closer to 485, 490 is kind of what we're currently sitting at, looking at paperwork that's come in and looking at records requests for students who are moving on for one reason or another. So would like to be in a stronger position at this point, but that is where we are right now. A few discipline incidents in the last month of school. It certainly felt like students were back to full-time in person this last month, but still good. We took some end of the year assessments, more in-house ones, not the state assessments, but in addition to that, we'll report a little bit more on that in the next agenda item. Report cards were finalized and sent out electronically. And then we have some curriculum development occurring this summer, at least the K4, K5 level. A few financials and building items. Gray spaces are actively under construction, have been for the last several weeks. Framing, electrical, and rough and plumbing are near completion, and they're still telling us late July. So as long as the materials are there and the tradespeople are available, seem to be on track. As this application was approved by the state, it'll provide additional intervention support for students in the areas of reading, math, and behavior. Our prior 2-year EdSys program was just supporting math achievement. We kind of tripled down here and went for reading, math, and behavior intervention support. CSP purchases continue to be made, including curriculum items, classroom furnishings, and instructional technology. A few ownership items there. We did have kind of an end of the year celebration, spent some time outside in 100-degree weather or close to it, but it was good and no one passed out. So we were happy with that. Athletic camps are kind of running already. ESY is coming up. Marching band will take place a little bit later this summer. And then we have a smaller presence in the Forest Lake Parade this year, which is exciting to see. Are we still looking for a trailer, Mr. Rapp?
That's being revisioned, but yes.
Okay, all right. So there you go. And then some marketing efforts are just ongoing, although we have kind of pushed a presence into White Bear Lakes Art in the Park, or their version of it, as we have had a number of families join us from that district, especially in the Hugo White Bear Lake area. And we already talked about some of the positions we're looking for. We did have really pretty late notice in the school year for that middle school language arts and the middle school math. Folks that just happened to move on to other opportunities. So we did meet some people last week and look forward to filling those positions soon. And then several of us attended the Osprey Wilds Environmental Education Equity Workshop today, virtually. So it was a good offering. Here ends the K-8 building report. Any questions?
All right. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
All right, upper school, Miss Goulet.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Just looking at a few things here. Our enrollment ended at 179. There were no changes from May to June. We have about 4 new upper school students that have applied. They are not reflected in these numbers just yet because we are just getting them to actually process the full enrollment forms. There will be, as Mr. Brandt alluded to, there's going to be some ebbs and flows with the grade levels based on who's coming in and then who is possibly leaving based on various reasons. Academics, we had the NWA map test results come out that Mr. Ogard created a really nice presentation as far as for the upper school. But really what we want to focus on is that we have quite a few students, a high percentage of our students in reading and math for our 9th and 10th grade levels that are at or above norm grade level when it comes to meeting they know in reading and math. So that is all positive. Our attendance and discipline summary report for the year end, we have 93, almost 93 and a half students that attended daily, which is phenomenal, knowing all the schedule changes that we went through and the challenges that came with that and having them being able to attend no matter if we ask them to be in person, online, or whatever that learning model was based on whatever circumstances were happening. So that's really impressive. We had 8 students referred for truancy. Didn't have all that many incidents for behavior this year, and I think that's just because of the flip-flopping of models that we had going on. And when the students were here, they were actually really good because I think they valued the fact of being in person, and then they valued and respected being around other people. So that's really positive to see as well. 72% of the class of 2021 received college credit for at least one university course while at NLA. We usually average anywhere between 70 and 75% from even the years past. So we're staying right in line with that. 74% of the class of 2021 has chosen to move on to higher learning, which is, again, we're just keep inching up in regards to what these students after high day. I sent honor roll certificates to all the students that achieved a 3.5. We started summer school today, both in the Forest Lake program as we're doing that for the summer. Our NLA program goes from June 21st through June 30th, and it really is just credit recovery for students that earned NCs. We're trying to help them complete their summatives in order for them to get a passing grade to show evidence of their learning and to meet expectations for those classes. Financials, we just purchased 111 desks and they were delivered last Monday, which was kind of nice off in an auction. So we have at least hopefully 3 to 4 sets or classroom sets of furniture that can be going into either our building or the middle school building. We did hire 5 new teachers, as Cam already alluded to. 2 of them are brand new out of college. The rest of them all have experience. The other 3 have experience, which is pretty nice. Graduation ceremony for all of you that attended. Thank you for coming. It was, I believe, a success. The feedback we got from parents as well as from the graduates was very positive, except that it was truly very hot. But for the most part, it was really nice to have it outside at Maranatha, and I think it went over very well. It just was really nice to see it happen that way. The class of 2021, if you were at the graduation, they earned 6 scholarships from the Forest Lake Area Community Scholarship Foundation, which I believe Cam was golfing at that fundraiser for today. The entire class of 2021 earned around $1.2 million in scholarships for higher education, which is pretty good, especially for as small as a class as it was this year. They represented very well. We've already talked a little bit about the 4th of July parade. We're trying to recruit more people. So we'll see where that goes. Social and emotional. a lot of check-ins with teachers towards the end, department meetings. We had a grading committee meeting. And then on the very last day of school, believe it or not, we had 91% of our 9th through 11th grade students actually respond for their attendance task. And their attendance task was to complete a survey based on a lot of traits or certain things about how the school year went. And that a few of the results, I didn't put all the results in here, but a few of the results, the first one being, I felt like I belonged at NLA for the 2021 school year. And we had close to 79% of our students saying that they belonged. And I think that's pretty phenomenal, knowing that we had some out of school, some in school, some doing both, hybrid, everything. It just meant that our teachers really connected with our students, and they knew that they were a part of something, even though it was challenging and that they weren't in person all the time. They felt like they succeeded. If you look at that chart as well, you know, we have well over 60% in the 4s and 5s, which means that they are agreeing that they feel like they succeeded this year amongst all the challenges and everything that were asked of them. They showed up. And I think that it's very apparent to that through the grades, as well as through the progress that our students are showing on the academic tests and stuff like that. And then there's just other information in there that you can look through that dealt with becoming traits that we look at. And then the very last one for 2021 school year, I'm happy with the outcomes of what I demonstrated and earned for my academics. So again, over 70% of our students are saying that, yep, I did what I was supposed to do, or I felt like I did what I was supposed to do. And they are being accountable for what they earn at the end of the year, you know, and then with the building that's happening and the meetings that we're having on a weekly basis, and when I go in and see the activity that's happening there, I'm really excited for what the fall's going to.
All right.
Thank you.
Questions for Ms. Goulet? All right. So the next item on the agenda would be the MAP report, I believe. Yep, the academic report on MAP growth. So I'm assuming that's, let's see. Is this the one you want right now, guys, or do you want the?
So we've each got one in there. It
Okay.
doesn't matter which one you go first.
All right. No, this one
That's
was-
mine. So yeah. And actually, Chelsea, if you will, each of the blue links it's a hyperlink. If you want to do that, it's a little more visual.
All right.
So NWEA, that's one of the nationally normed tests that we give. If you want to zoom in just one notch there, maybe. There you go. Yeah, so that's the math, and that's students in grades 6 through 10. If you're looking at the chart, you have the first set of numbers. Students take the math tests in the fall and they get a score, and then they compare to national norms, and then they set a growth target. That diamond, the gold diamond, is actually the growth target. So you'll see that most grade levels fell short of that growth target this year. 9th grade exceeded it actually quite a bit. All students did demonstrate growth, if you will, but it wasn't as rigorous a growth as in a typical year, especially as has been the history here at North Lakes. My personal assessment is that has a lot to do with the disrupted learning models, mainly the fact that, you know, middle school was distance last spring and then hybrid through the beginning of March. I think that really impeded growth, especially in the subject of math. Looking at the next page, you're looking at reading. Again, not meeting those growth projections like we typically see in a more typical year, but still demonstrating growth, just not as rigorous. So that's kind of where we ended the year per that analysis. Elementary, they take a different nationally normed test. It's called A Reading, A Math, put together by FastBridge. And what you're looking at here is the percent change from median. So you have the district overall, they had a positive 7% change in median score from fall to spring. And then you have each of the next grade levels 1 through 5. Kindergarten works a little differently, so they don't have a score in this particular growth metric. But you'll see that In elementary, overall made a 7 percentage point growth above that national median, and 4 of 5 grade levels demonstrate increase in the percentage of students scoring above the national median fall to spring. First grade was particularly impressive in math at 21%. And then the last report, Chelsea, is the reading for elementary. And again, same test, different subject, and this is reading, but they were also 7 percentage points ahead that national median score fall to spring. So they're making a significant gain. And 4 out of 5 grade levels demonstrate increase in the percentage of points scoring above the national median fall to spring as well. 16% more students scoring above the national median was observed in second grade. So second grade was a really promising growth metric there in the subject of reading. I think the elementary results reflect not only great instruction and students willing to work, but also their more stable learning model throughout the year. Any questions on K-8 academic growth?
All right. Thank you, Mr. Brandt. All right. Or Jamie or Josh, I don't know who's taking this one.
Yeah, I'll let Josh take it. Josh can do it if he wants to do it.
Sure. So the spring results from the upper school campus for NWA testing. I just put on there just the national norms for RIT scores and what they are based on percentile. So 50th percentile is average score nationally. So for 9th grade, you can see there for math, average score would be 226, reading 219. And then I also on the next slide have 10th grade. And then I also included the achievement and growth norms, which Andrew alluded to in his were graphs, mine are tables. So then if you scroll down to the next slide, we get into the 9th grade results. We had for 9th grade, almost 53% of the students met or exceeded their projected RIT scores. About 50, we met project about 57% of the projected growth overall in 9th grade. So normally want to be at 100. That's 100% of the students reaching their growth. We were only at 57% for 9th grade. But we did have 81% of the students be at or above the norm grade level in terms of their RIT score, which is pretty good. That just means they achieved high scores. There just wasn't a lot of growth, as much growth as we normally would want. The next slide kind of shows a mapping of what that looks like. So if you're in the green quadrant, that means you achieved a high RIT score, but you also had a high growth from fall to spring. The yellow underneath that would be high achievement, but low growth. The orange, low achievement, high growth, and then the red, low achievement and low growth. For us having most of the students in that green or the yellow quadrant, that's a good sign. That means they're achieving high. We just want to get more of those yellow points up into the green area to make sure that they're actually growing throughout the year as well. And then the next few slides go through 10th grade. So 10th grade kind of struggled from when they were in 9th grade, they actually grew quite a bit. And then this last year, we kind of saw the opposite effect. And like Andrew had said, I would say it's definitely a case of being bounced back and forth from distant learning to in-person and all over the place. We only had about 32% who met or exceeded their projected RIT score. We actually had negative growth in 10th grade, which is, I don't think I've seen that before at my time here at NLA. So that was very weird. And then as you can see on the next slide here with the mapping, this is for reading. Still a lot of high achievement, but a lot more students down towards the lower part of the graph, meaning that they just didn't grow, which is unfortunate for a school year, but considering the school year we had is understandable. So that's reading. And then if you keep scrolling down, we get more into the math. Keep going. And then we have ninth grade results for math. It was very interesting knowing knowing kind of what their scores were back when they were in 7th and 8th grade, and then seeing what they achieved in ninth grade. I was actually very proud of the ninth graders this year. We had over 100% of met projected growth, which is awesome for them. Almost 82% of them are at or above norm grade level, which is phenomenal. And if you scroll down to the mapping on the next slide, you can see there we have a good portion of our ninth graders are in that green quadrant, which is awesome. And then the 10th graders, 10th graders were kind of, yeah, we can just go to the mapping there. Again, just a lot of high achievement. So they're on that right side of the grid. We just want to see more growth. So hopefully next year, with it being more of a normal school year, hopefully we'll get more of them to shift up into that green quadrant. So here's the report for NWEA testing. Any questions?
All right. Thank you, Josh. All right, so that brings us to, that's the end of the academic report. And so that brings us to the executive director report. Let me go there now. Which one do you want me to project there, Cam?
The one you're on.
This one?
Yep.
All right, go for it.
All right, so a lot of this has been alluded to already, so I won't retread that, but obviously passing the budget. So this last month, what time was spent on preparing that and setting some of those metrics, doing the preliminary goals for the DEC, which you'll see in the next agenda item. We've been busy interviewing and hiring in this last month or so, ordering supplies for additional classrooms and spaces. One thing that is new for the board to know about Power School University, we use some of our Title II money for administrators to take classes this summer online in how to use Power School more efficiently, and just to gain some new power and aspects with Power School as a whole. And so we'll be doing that over the summer in order to just become a little more proficient at Power School. And then ongoing construction meetings, ongoing construction that'll continue throughout the summer. And we're beginning this week planning and preparation for the fall in earnest. So we've kind of had a chance to take a breath in this last week, and now we're going to get back at it. With that, are there any questions about the report?
Mowing, Cam, you forgot to mention mowing.
I'm doing that Thursday, or that I did that. Yeah. Mowing is and will continue to be happening here. I'm glad that had an effect on you.
It's not your job description, boss.
All right. Thank you, Cam. And this next one's you too. This is the next item on the agenda is the DEC preliminary goals for next year.
Yeah, so I will do this as time. Typically, the DEC chair gives this report. I'm not totally sure who that is at the moment. I know who the DEC is. I don't remember who the chair is. But with that said, I did take a run at some preliminary goals. This last few weeks, we just needed to get here, so we'll sharpen this up as we move forward. But the idea is to set goals in each of our 4 strategic plan pillars. So looking at academic growth, placed a rough goal around an emphasis on math and reading instruction and performance, with the goal of increased scores of proficiency and growth using MAP and MCA metrics. So we've had the last 2 years really some interrupted testing, some interrupted data, and the hope is that we get back into a more streamlined instructional method, obviously coming up this school year. And with that, and with the addition of the ADSYS grant and some turnover in both math and language arts, I just think that's obviously a real core area to put some effort and time and instruction into. I won't be doing that alone. Obviously, Jamie and Andrew will play a big part of that as well. But that's a big academic focus for me for this coming year. And then if you shift down to financial, again, it just these next 2 years are critical for enrollment. And so again, spending a lot of time and putting a lot of energy into how to do that as robustly as possible. I'm really looking forward to be able to put back some of the events that we know have been successful for us in the last few years. The trunk or treat at the K campus. I'm sure we'll be able to do some things at the upper school once it's done. We'll have a grand opening and get the community in there for that. We want to set some big events throughout the year that get the community talking about us and involved with NLA. The music program should hopefully be able to have some more performances, whether it's the veterans performance or just the traditional concerts we tend to do. So marketing and enrollment will be the focus for financial growth, knowing what the next 2 years are in front of us. Ownership growth, we're looking to revamp our compensation model. As you know, this year we just put in a flat 2% increase for all staff. But I'd really like to get us to a spot where we kind of redefine how we value through financial means, how we value teaching staff, administrative staff, and special ed staff. And I put special ed in its own category just because it's funded so differently, and the supply and demand for that is such a different structure than the others. I think it's worth it to have 3 unique talking points with the compensation model. And really, I'd like to see that kind of be a 2-year project. If we can do it faster, that'd be great. But I want us to make sure we do this right and get the investment of and feedback from as many as possible. So I do plan on having that be a committee-based goal as we move forward through this year to set ourselves up for the next 5 to 10 years. The previous compensation model, I think, has served us for 9 or 10 years. It's been right around that. And it's gotten to a point where I think it did its initial job well. And now it's time to put something in that can do its initial job well and keep us growing and satisfied in a way that values everyone involved. So that is the ownership goal. And then the last one is the social emotional goal. And that is really just a renewed focus on our Becoming program. Again, with all the disruptions in play, it's been really hard to get the K-5 staff and then K-8 as a whole kind of centered around Becoming in a way that would be tangible. So we will do that better these coming years and really just get that established again as kind of the cornerstone of who we are and what we do well. So that's currently what the goal for social emotional growth is centered around. These goals, I think, are all realistic and doable and shouldn't be sidetracked by other things going on throughout the school year, because I think they're all big enough that they'll always maintain a focus piece. There will obviously always be things that jump up and come into play throughout a school year that maybe we can't forecast right now, but I think these goals are appropriate for the school to move forward and appropriate for me to have a laser type focus on. So with that, I'll kind of open up to comment or questions as you said.
All right. Questions for Cam on the DEC goals? All right, thank you. The next item on the agenda is the second read of the electronic signature policy. The policy committee did not receive any feedback on this. So for those of you who are new to this, this is the second read. We'll take a vote on it. So does anyone have anything want to add, or, I mean, I prefer that it had been done before, but if anyone feels passionately about it, we can argue. All right. If that's the case, I would entertain a motion to approve policy 208, use of electronic signatures to conduct official business.
I will make a motion to approve policy 208.
Thank you, Josh. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Thank you, Tom.
I'll second that.
Tom had the second. You can get the next one, Scott. All right. So roll call. Bogard,
I
Lutz,
Aye.
Schlosser,
Aye.
Rapp. You're muted there, Jeff.
The bane of working on two screens. Yes.
Aguilar,
Aye.
Hanson,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
and Borgwart.
Aye.
All right. Motion passes. Policy 208 has been approved. All right. Next item on the agenda is the added item, which is the policy 317. And Stu emailed me that he reformatted this, but the language should be the same. My formatting was was not correct, which was to be expected from me. All right, so this is the second first read of the revamp of policy 317, which is the Title IX policy. So does anyone want to discuss here in open meeting anything you saw?
I'll give a little background on kind of how we
Okay.
got here, just as a reminder. Last July or somewhere around there, last July, the federal government redefined some Title IX process and procedures. And with that came a model policy that was very expansive and robust. And so as a school, we frankly waited for other districts to put this policy into place to see what they came up with instead of kind of taking this on as our own. And with that, last month, I put forward one that Minnetonka had narrowed down from what in its inception was like a 55-page policy, and they had narrowed it down to somewhere around 18, 19 pages. But there still were some questions around some of the aspects of it, like who would be named an investigator or a decision maker and so on. And so we wanted a little more clarity around that. And so the board tasked me last month to look if there are other ways to get clarity on that. And I was able to find a policy that AFSA had put into place earlier in the year that had much of the same language and much of the same premise, but we think, for those who have seen it, think that it did a much clearer job of defining some of those roles and just kind of simplified it. It's still a nice 16-page read for anyone who's looking to spend some time on it, but it does lay out kind of process and procedure in a way that seems to be a little more easy to understand and follow. So that's what's in front of you right now, is that kind of simplified policy, if you will.
All right. Let's see. I think I guess does anyone have any initial thoughts, or if you'd prefer to just send them directly to the committee, we can do that. Tom, go ahead.
Yeah. So, what was it? The Minnetonka one that we had seen first was talking about specific staff at the school taking on specific roles. This one seemed a little bit more vague about that. So I'm kind of curious. I didn't see anything in the policy if there's a procedure for choosing folks to fill the Title IX roles.
Yeah, so I'll start this by saying currently I am designated as a Title IX coordinator for North Lakes. So the way this is laid out is that the Title IX coordinator usually, most often, is responsible for designating those other roles. And some of that obviously depends on if a complaint comes forward, who is involved in the complaint. So if it is, let's just say, an administrator, then that might affect who's being assigned what role in that case. But the Title IX coordinator is the one that kind of defines who's in what role for that investigation. And it's done in a way to eliminate bias, and also done in a way where the investigation, if needed, can be done in a efficient manner, so that it doesn't effectively say like this person's this person's that, because it does depend on what comes in as a complaint and who's involved in the complaint. But it does lay out that the Title IX coordinator is the one that is in charge of kind of assigning those roles, if that makes sense. And I would just say, as the coordinator right now, that would most likely be administrative staff and or a board member, depending again on the variables at play with the complaint, or an outside third party like a legal counsel if needed, depending again on the severity of the complaint. So that is the approach that I believe I would take with this.
Okay, give me a sec, because I spent a lot of time with this last night, and I think I had something that would. So what happens if, like, the Title IX coordinator? What if you're the subject of the complaint? Like, what happens? I'm just trying to cover bases here. Like, who then makes the decisions for the Title IX coordinator?
Yeah, then I would say that would default to the board chair, but I would, and frankly, that's what has happened in the past.
Okay.
And then at that point, it went pretty quickly into legal counsel, but again, it would depend on the complaint itself.
Okay. Just trying to think, failing to think like an attorney here, but all right. So is that something that needs to be part of this language? Like, as a policy committee, does the board want us to identify that?
May I respond?
Of course.
So the Title IX coordinator is not the investigator.
Correct.
And cannot be. So even if the Title IX coordinator is the subject, all the Title IX coordinator gets to do is decide who the investigator, the decision maker, those people are. It might be to our benefit and to our executive director's benefit to include in there some language to say that the board chair in that instance becomes the one who is the default. But other than that, I don't see a real problem with that, except for now the Title IX investigator gets to decide who gets to investigate them.
Right. And then again, the truth in that is, I have a boss, 9 bosses exactly, to work under, that I would seek that counsel. And, I probably more likely than not, that would come to a outside legal counsel representation, but who knows, right? I mean, but that would be the idea I have in my head is I'm going to do what my bosses want me to do in that case. And so it would be going hand in hand with the board chair.
Great.
Yeah, and we always have the option of a third party for all of that stuff, which is helpful in most cases.
I have a question. Now the Title IX coordinator is the executive director. Does it make a difference if the Title IX coordinator, if that position would, for whatever reason, shift to someone else? Would it still be beneficial then to have clear language as to where? I feel like it's beneficial to have clear language for that.
Yeah, I'll comment on that because there's a question I had too. A benefit I could see to that, and this would just be when thinking of a school in the roles of positions, not necessarily pertaining to CAM in this position, but if the Title IX coordinator were someone else, that would allow this position, the director position, to be the investigator, which may be advantageous in a number of ways. If just if you even just think of like the time capacity or the ability to meet with people and do things like that, it's just that role is set up a little bit better than if that were passed on to someone else. So Frank, that'd be something I would be open to discussing and thinking about as well.
Let's see. I have a few hands here. Let's see, Jeff, you had a question or a comment. Is that from?
Sorry about that. That was just a continuing hand from before.
All right, Tom.
Yeah, so I'm trying to think, because we kind of got two things in the discussion, right? One would be like a progression, right? Where if one person, for whatever reason, was unable to perform one of the Title IX roles, you know, like what would the progression be for somebody to take over that role? Which, frankly, I kind of like. I like to have that kind of. I'd like to have that kind of disclosure in a policy like this. And then the other piece, you know, if we're talking about, well, what if the executive director is not the coordinator? How do I want to phrase this? That, I don't know, if it's at all possible that it's like, if the policy were to say the Title IX coordinator should be chosen from people in these positions. So whether, you know, the Title IX coordinator should be chosen between the chair of the board, the legal counsel, and whoever else, right? Like I said, I like the idea of kind of having that kind of a disclosure and a policy where it's not a completely open field. Yeah.
Right. Well, the Title IX coordinator does have to be like chosen, and that stays. That doesn't shift from person to person. A lot of schools, I don't know what schools, charter schools are size, but a lot of larger public schools, the Title IX coordinator is often the activities director or the athletics director, because frankly, most of these type of cases come up through those ranks. But there could be a number of options for NLA as well. And again, I'd be open to entertaining that. Really, let's hope we don't really ever have to use this policy, but the likelihood of it's good to have it in place and we have a procedure to do it. But I guess, like I said, I think we're covered with the staff we have in place to do this well. And again, I think we would default pretty quickly to third-party counsel if any of us felt unsure about our role in it or what the role of the school should be. We tend to turn and rely on legal experts in that case than our own expertise.
And you said the coordinator doesn't move. Do you do it a different way?
Yeah, so like right now I am the Title IX coordinator and I have been for, I don't know, at least 6 years. It's a position that the school designated a while back, and it's not one that we like have changed yearly or even discussed yearly. If you'd like to, I'd be more than happy to, but it's just, that's where it's been. It's been on directors.
Cam, these roles are if we were to handle this in-house.
Right.
But usually,
and it could be a combination. I mean, if we hired an attorney to do the investigation, the attorney may still have a building lead or someone else be the decision maker in the process too, or the board, you know.
Right, but then the attorney would be making that
right
decision.
Yep.
Other thoughts?
May I just encourage board members to put these thoughts into writing and to send them to the policy committee? Chairman currently is who?
Let's see. I'm just sending, I guess that's me. I guess. I don't know, Cam, who's the chair? Is it?
I don't know. It's
my memory is that it's you, Chelsea.
All right. I guess I am now. I was probably Stu before, so.
It could still be Chris. There's no reason why it can't be.
He might really enjoy that.
He actually might really enjoy that. Okay, well, you can send everything to me. We will clarify that role at our next policy committee meeting, just to make sure Stu is still on board with that. And then, but for now, anything you send me, I will just forward to all policy committee members so everybody will get it. Is that acceptable for the time being? Okay. Okay. All right. So that was a first read. So between now and when the agenda goes out again, put your thoughts together sooner rather than later. We're gonna, I think, try to have a meeting to discuss this one here in the, well, next 3 to 4 weeks, 3 weeks. So we don't need a vote on that. If everybody's good, we can move on. I can finish out the rest of the agenda so everybody can get going. All right, so other business. The first one is that board training has been scheduled and you should have all received an email about that. So new member training will be held from 8 to 4 on August 3rd. On August 18th, there is a keynote presentation at 5 p.m. And then on August 19th, that's a full day training from 8 to 5. As far as I know, that's digital. I don't think they're going in person, but they could surprise me. They haven't sent out, I haven't received registration information yet. You guys will receive it when I receive it. But once I receive it, I'll also email you to say, did you receive it? Because I'm type A like that. So that's the update with board training. Where we're at. We're just, again, waiting on more information from Osprey Wilds, and I'll let you know. All right. Questions on that? All right. Cut me off at any time then. So the mentors and mentees, if you have questions, just check in with with your mentors or mentees, or touch base with each other, make sure folks are involved. Or as always, if you have questions, you can reach out to me too, if some of this is seeming like Greek to you with the first time on a board. And then so if you could just, mentors, just shoot an email to the new folks checking in. And then the last thing is looking forward to next month. What is on our schedule would be the activity director report and the operational director. I suppose it would be, it was usually tech director, but operational. We're due for one of those. And then we're due for an environmental coordinator report. So an update there. And then a review of the staff handbook before the school year starts, and an academic report on attendance and discipline. Also, at some point as the summer goes on, we can kind of arrange this through email. I would, as the school year comes up again, I'd like to bring policy 334 back and start to do some work on that. That's the gender inclusion policy. So that, I can touch base with you as far as when you want to start talking about that again. But there have been some developments in that, and it would be good for us to work on that as the school year comes to a start here. So. All right. If that is all I have, and that's all that was on the agenda. So
I have an ask actually, before we adjourn. I don't know how the board feels about this, but at this point on, I'd like to advocate, and I won't do this every month, I'll just do it once. I'd like to advocate that we start to meet in person at this one. I know the convenience of not being all in the same spot, but as we've been trying to do with staff meetings near the end of the year and as many times possible, face-to-face is just a different feel, and I'm a strong advocate for it. So I'd like to put that out there for the board to consider, that going forward, we meet in person.
all right, thoughts on, or something we can work out over email, Cam, or what?
Yeah, I mean, it really, I can suggest, but I have no other power than that. So.
All right. Noted. So I will send an email to get the vibe on that.
I'd just add that if anybody's wondering, you can't do dual. It's either in person or it's all virtual. I don't think you can have board members attend electronically unless that policy has been modified due to the pandemic, but.
Okay. Good to know. All right. All right. Then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Lutz. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Ogard. By roll call vote, Lutz.
Aye.
Ogard.
Aye.
Rapp.
Aye.
Blusser.
Aye.
Delvelar.
Aye.
Hanson.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Borgwart.
Aye.
All right. That passes unanimously. I'd be worried if it didn't. All right. Have a good weekend, guys, or a good week.
Thanks, guys.
Aye.
Bye.
Thanks, Chelsea.
Chelsea had a couple quick things. If you can hang on,
Yep. Just
want
let
to
me.
get a couple things in the minutes here.
Yep. Let me stop the recording now.